Hilchos Temidin Umusafin Perek Asiri, the laws of the daily and the additional sacrifices and services in the temple, chapter 10, the final chapter. We are going to be discussing the Musaf sacrifices of Yom Kippur, Sukkot, and Shmini Atzeret. The rest of the holidays that we didn't discuss, plus the special, what's called Nisuch HaMayim, the pouring of the water that used to happen also on Sukkot, because it's also an additional service that would happen on one of the holidays, so we're going to discuss all of that today. Beginning with Yom Kippur. Halacha Aleph, B'Yom HaKippurim, on the Day of Atonement, it's the 10th of Tishrei, Makrivin Musaf Kemusaf Resh Hashanah. There's an additional sacrifice, just like the numbers of the Musaf of the New Year, which we saw yesterday. Par v'ayil, one bull, one ram. V'ayil zeh nikra el ha'am. This ram is also called in the Torah the ram of the people. Why is the Rambam saying this? Because later we're going to see in the laws related to Yom Kippur that there's another bull. But on Yom Kippur, that was a private bull for the Kohen Gadol himself. This one, the one that's part of the Musaf, is the ram. Sorry, ram. I'm going to say bull. The Kohen Gadol brought his own ram, Elish al Kohen Gadol. So here the Rambam differentiates. He says this one is the ram of the people. That was part of the Musaf. And besides that, there was another ram. The Shiva Kvasim plus 7 sheep, Kulan Oiles, they're all burnt offerings. Usir Chatas, V'nechol Erev, and the goat for a sin offering, which was eaten, of course not on Yom Kippur, it was eaten the following night when you're able to eat. Halacha Beis, V'oid Makrivin Hatzibur, Seir Chatas. There was another goat that was offered by the community, not really part of the Musaf. It was a sin offering, V'hu Nisraf, but it's burnt. Sheben Zugay Soira Mishtaleach. Its partner was the goat that was sent away. Part of the service of Yom Kippur was this raffle. They would bring in 2 goats that looked exactly the same, and they would pick 2 lots. One would say La Hashem, one would say La Azazel. The one for Hashem was burnt as a sin offering. The one that said La Azazel was taken outside to a cliff, pushed off a cliff, was part of the atonement. But this, says the Rambam, this goat is not part of the Musaf. This is an additional goat that was brought by the community. And that's the laws of the extra sacrifices on Yom Kippur. Moving on to Sukkot. Halacha Gimel Bayim Harishain Shal Chag HaSukkos, on the first day of the holiday of Sukkot, we bring probably the biggest musaf of any day. Makrivin Musaf Hayom. For the musaf of the day we bring Shloisha Asar Parim, Ushnei Elim, V'arba Asar Kvasim Kulan Eilis. 13 bulls, 2 rams, and 14 sheep as burnt offerings, Usir Chatas Ne'acheles, plus a goat, sin offering which would be eaten. V'chein Kol Yom V'Yom Mishivas Yemei Chag, and the same was true for the rest of the 7 days of the holiday about the last part. Makrivin Shnei Elim V'arba Asar Kvasim Usir Chatas. There was always 2 rams, 14 sheep, and a goat for a sin offering. Aval Haparim Halacha Daled, but the bulls Peichasin Echad Echad B'Chol Yom. They would go down in number, 1 every day. So if on day 1 there was 13 bulls, Basheni Makrivin Shnei Masar, on the second day there was 12 bulls, Bashlishi Achad Asar, on the third day there was 11, Ad Sheyimatzei Karban Yom Shvi, until on the 7th day, what did we have? Parim Shiva, just 7 bulls, Elim Shnayim, Kvasim Arba Asar Hakal Eiles, 2 rams, 14 sheep, all burnt offerings, Usir Chatas, and a goat for the sin offering. Yom Shmini Atzeres, the next day, the 8th day, the last day really of Sukkot, but it's kind of its own holiday. Shmini Atzeres, Makrivin Musaf Hayom, we brought also a sacrifice, extra sacrifice on that day, like Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. Par v'ayil, 1 bull, 1 ram, B'shiva Kvasim, 7 sheep, Kulan Eiles, all burnt offerings, Usir Chatas, and a goat for a sin offering. V'zem Musaf B'fnei Atzmai, this was a Musaf unto itself. Okay, before we get to a couple more laws of the Sukkos Musaf, the Rambam diverts to the Nisuch HaMayim. This was also an extra service done on Sukkos. Kol Shivas Yemei Chag. All 7 days of Sukkos, Menaschen es HaMayim al Gabe HaMizbeach, there was what's called Nisuch HaMayim, a special pouring of the water on top of the altar. Even though every day there was only wine, on Sukkos there was also water. This is received from tradition. It's not clearly in the Torah. We heard it from Moshe Rabbeinu on Mount Sinai. Although it is hinted in the Torah. In the sacrifices of Sukkot, there's an extra, if you look at the words, the Hebrew words, there's an extra mem, an extra yud, and an extra mem, which spells mayim. It's spells water. There's an allusion to it in the Torah. V'im nisu chayayin shel tamid shel shachar hayemenasech hamayim levadai. Together with the pouring of the wine that would accompany the morning daily sacrifice, they would also pour the water. You can see it over here. We'll talk about it more in detail in a second. But there was two special bowls on top of the mizbeach. Here's the kohen pouring the wine. Here's the kohen pouring the water. They did it at the same time. V'im eira hamayim l'sei chayayin, oy hayayim l'sei hamayim, v'nisich shneim mikli echad. If for whatever reason the kohen decided to mix the water and the wine, he poured the water into the wine cup or the wine into the water cup, and he poured them both out from one utensil, yatza, it's okay. You fulfilled your obligation. If he prefaced the pouring of the water, instead of pouring it together with the wine, he did it before the slaughtering of the morning sacrifice, afilu nischan balayla, even if you did it by night, meaning the night before, yatza, you fulfilled your obligation. As long as during the 24-hour period of every day you brought some water, that's okay. What's fascinating that everyone's pointed out is that when it comes to the wine, the Talmud also says you could pour it by night, but not the night before, the night after. So the water you could pour the night before, the wine you could pour the night after. What does that represent spiritually? The sacrifice, korban, in the Zohar is called ha'ala'ah. It's rising. It's bringing of oneself to Hashem. The libations, the nisachim, represent the hamshacha, the drawing down of energy that follows the sacrifice. Hashem brings down the blessings. So usually, the nisachim had to come after the korban. First you bring it up, and then Hashem brings the blessings down. That's why the wine could not be brought before the sacrifice, it had to be brought after the sacrifice. But water represents, in creation, Hashem split the water in two. There was the mayim elyonim and the mayim tachtanim, the higher and upper waters. Represents splitting those things that belong in the spiritual domain to the physical domain. That concept is something that could be done even before the sacrifice is brought. Kind of dividing the domains. Therefore, the water could be brought even the night before. They used to pour the water on the southwestern corner of the altar, on the top half of the mizbeach. So if you look at this picture over here, this is the southwestern corner, closest kind of to the temple structure, where the Rambam just says they would pour it on the upper half of the mizbeach. Why is the Rambam saying that? Because he himself said in the last set of laws that regularly the wine was poured on the bottom of the mizbeach. Only on Sukkot they were poured on top. And from here, the pipes would take them all the way down to the shisin, which was these underground pipelines where it would all collect and go down. What was the procedure for this water pouring? They would take a golden jug that could hold 3 lug. It's not so much. It's about 35 to 40 ounces. He would fill it up from the Shiloach spring. Actually, there was a whole, what's called Simchat Beit HaShoeva. All night they used to dance in the Beis HaMikdash and do performances and songs and all kinds of things. At the end of the night, everybody would walk to the Shiloach spring. You see everybody over here. This is the golden jug they're holding. And they would fill it up from the Shiloach. Take the water, march back to the Beis HaMikdash. Higiu l'shar hamayim, once they reached the gate that was known as the gate of the water, that's what they used to bring the water through. Taku v'hiriu v'taku, they blew trumpets. Tekiah, teruah, tekiah, long blast, short blast, long blast. And then they came all the way back into the Beis HaMikdash. Allah lakevesh, the Kohen would come up the ramp. Upana lismailai, and turn towards his left, right? So that's towards the left. V'neisan hamayim minatz leichis, and he would pour the water from the jug right into the bowl that was there. There was actually 2 bowls. So shnei sfalim shal kesef hayusham. There was 2 silver bowls over there. Ma'aravi haya by hamayim, umizrachi haya by hayayin shal nesach. The western one, this one here closer to the temple structure, was for the water. The eastern one was for the wine. They had holes, like 2 thin nostrils. But because naturally water is less dense than wine, the hole of the water one was thinner than the wine one, so you can pour them out and the wine would come out at the same speed as the water, which requires more space for the wine, which is more dense. Whoever was pouring the water, Hayu Emrim lei hagba yodcha. They would tell him, lift your hand. If you look over here, you can compare. Here's the guy with the wine. He's kind of bent over. Here's the guy with the water. His hand had to be raised. Show us that you're pouring the water. Why? Why was that important? Shapam achas nisich echad al raglav. Because there was one time where a Kohen poured the water onto his feet. He didn't pour it into the proper place because he was a tzeduki. He was a Sadducee who didn't believe in the authenticity of Torah She'ba'al Peh, of the oral tradition, and he was trying to sabotage the service. So he just poured it onto his feet. And the people realized what they do. Urigamuhu kol ha'am be'esregehen. They stoned him with their esregs. Because people, as we learned in the laws of Sukkot, they used to all stand around with a little of an esrog while this would go down. They realized he was doing something fishy. The whole crowd took their esrog. Think of an esrog. Today it costs $100 to buy an esrog. It's very expensive stuff. They chucked it at him. Sha'amru tzdukihu. Because they said he was a tzeduki. Sheheina emrim ein menaschin mayim, which they say, we don't do the pouring of the water. So he denied Torah She'ba'al Peh in the Beis HaMikdash. He deserved the death penalty. Halacha tes k'maaseu b'chol kach maaseu b'Shabbos. The same way it was done during the week, it was done the same way on Shabbos, with one exception of filling up the water. They didn't fill up the water on the nighttime. They used to fill up a full barrel of gold with water on Friday. So it wasn't the holy utensil. Leave it in the chamber in the temple. The next day, you filled it up from the barrel. If that water got poured or left open overnight, which you can't use it, then in case of emergency, you can fill up from the kir, the laver which was there in the temple anyways, and pour the water in that case from there. Returning now to the Musaf of the day. The Musaf of the day, every day of Sukkot, was accompanied by a different song. The Leviim would sing a different song. The first day of Chol HaMoed, they used to say, Havu LaHashem b'nei Elim, Psalm 29. Praise Hashem, children of the mighty. Basheni, on day 2, they would say, V'lo Rasha Amar Elokim v'goymer. It's part of Psalm 50. Hashem told the Rasha, why do you talk about my laws? The Rebbe once asked, it's actually like a bit of a strange thing to start with, like a negative connotation. But they would say Psalm 50. Bashlishi miyakum li mirei. On Tuesday they would say from Psalm 94, from the Wednesday's song of the day, where it says, who will stand up for me against the wicked? But on the 4th day of Chol HaMoed, they would say, Binu bayarim ba'am, the earlier part of Psalm 94, where it says, those fools among the nation should understand. B'chamishi hasiresi misevel shichmer. On the 5th day of Chol HaMoed, they would start from the middle of Psalm 81, where it says that I removed his shoulder from the burden. And continue the psalm. Bashishi yimoitu kol moisdei aretz v'goymer. On the 6th day of Chol HaMoed, they would say, where it says in Psalm 82, we read it on Tuesday usually, all the foundations of the earth will tremble. V'imchal Shabbos liyers be'echad mehen. If Shabbat was on one of the days of Chol HaMoed, yimoitu yidacha. You push away the last one, yimoitu. In other words, you keep following the order. On Shabbat, you skip the order because you do the Shabbat song. And then you just miss out the last one. Now, this is a very interesting thing that happened on Sukkot. Halacha Yud Beis. Kvar be'arnu, we already explained. Shekol mishmaris kuhuna esrim v'arba. There was 24 groups of Kohanim. V'kulan oivdin b'shava b'regalim. And we explained that they used to all come on holidays. Each one had a week, but on holidays, everybody would come. And because there were so many sacrifices, remember the first day of Sukkot, there was 13 bulls and 14 sheep. So, Ubechaga Sukkot, on the Sukkot holiday, Hayakol Mishmar, we wanted every watch, every group to get maximum that they can partake in the sacrifices. So every rotation, every group would be makriv, would offer par echad, oy ayil echad, oy seir hachatas. One of the bulls, or one of the rams, or one of the goats. Aval hakvasim, but the sheep, depending on how many animals there were that day, yesh mishmar shemakriv mehen shnei kvasim, v'yesh mishmar shemakriv keves echad. Some groups would get 2 sheep, some would only get 1. Follow this. Ketzad, how would this work? The Rambam walks us through in detail. B'yom tov harishon shel Chag, on the first day of Sukkot, hayusham shleisha asar parim u'shnei elim v'sar. There was 13 bulls, 2 rams, and a goat. How many animals is that? 16. So that takes care of 16 groups. Kol mishmar makriv behema achas mehem. Every group would offer or be in charge of offering one of those animals. There's only 24 groups, but there's 14 sheep. Nisharu sham arba asar kvasim l'shmeina mishmares. There's 14 sheep for 8 groups. Okay? Shisha mishmares makrivin shnayim shnayim, u'shnei mishmares makrivin echad echad. So 6 people got 2 sheep. That's 12 sheep, and 2 of the groups took 1. 14 sheep. Now, Basheni, on the second day of Sukkot, you took away 1 bull. Only 12 bulls. Hayusham shnei masar parim u'shnei elim v'sar. There was 12 bulls, 2 rams, and a goat. What's that? Only 15 animals. Kol mishmar makriv echad. So now, if each group takes one of those animals, nisharu shamar ba'asar kvasim l'tisha mishmarais. Now we have the 14 sheep for 9 groups. So 1 less. Chamisha makrivin shnayim shnayim, v'arba makrivin echad echad. 5 of them would bring 2 sheep for 10, and the other 4 were 1 per group.
Then why is that?
Huh? Because we want everyone to participate.
Yeah.
If you have 14 groups, if you have 14 sheep,
Divided it this way.
how should they divide it? We have 9 groups for 14 sheep. So you give everybody 1.
Yeah,
That's 9. Then you have 5 more, so 5 need to get 2. Bashlishi, on day 3, now there's even less. We took away 2 bulls. Hayusham achad asar parim u'shnei elim v'sar. There's only 11 bulls, 2 rams, and a goat. Total of 14 animals. Kol mishmar makriv echad. So if each group would bring 1 of those animals, nisharu arba asar kvasim la'asara mishmaris. We now have 14 sheep for 10 groups. So we keep going down. Arba makrivin shnayim shnayim, v'shisha makrivin echad echad. 4 groups will bring 2. The other 6 will bring 1. But Ravi, now it's day 4, and there's even less bulls. Hayusham asara parim u'shnei elim v'soyer. There's 10 bulls. Whoops, I skipped the slide. 10 bulls. And before I showed the wrong one, oh yeah, this was for day 3. 11 bulls. This is for day 4. 10 bulls. Asara parim u'shnei elim v'soyer. 10 bulls, 2 rams, and a goat. Kol mishmar makriv echad. 13 groups. Each group brings 1. Nisharu shamar ba'asar kvasim la'achad asar mishmar. We have 14 sheep for 11 groups now. Shleisha makrivin shnayim shnayim, u'shmeina makrivin echad echad. So 3 of them bring 2 sheep, 8 of them bring 1. B'chamishi, now it's day 5. Hayu sham tisha parim u'shnei elim v'sayir. 9 bulls, 2 rams, and a goat. Kol mishmar makriv echad. Every group brings 1. Nisharu shamar ba'asar kvasim l'shnei masar mishmar. Now you have 14 sheep for 12 groups. Shnei mishmaris makrivin shnayim shnayim, basar makrivin echad echad. Only 2 groups could bring 2 sheep today. Other 10 would bring 1. Bashishi, now it's day 6. Hayu sham, or hayu shmeina parim shnei elim v'sayir. Only 8 bulls, 2 rams, and a goat. Kol mishmar makriv echad. If every group brings 1, nishar shamar basar kvasim l'shleisha asar mishmar. You have now 14 sheep remaining for 13 groups. Mishmar echad mehan makriv shnei kvasim, so only 1 gets to bring 2 sheep. Ushnei masar mishmar makrivin echad echad. The other 12 bring 1 sheep at a time. Shvi was the easiest day. The 7th day, Hayusham Shiva Parim Ushnei Elim V'Sayir, there was exactly 24 animals. There was 7 bulls, 2 rams, and a goat. Barba Asar Kvasim, Kiminyan HaMishmaris, 14 sheep. For the remaining number of groups, Nimsa Kol Mishmar Makriv Behema Acha, so every group will bring 1 animal. Now, one thing that Rambam didn't mention is the following halacha. The Chol Misha Haya Makriv Par Hayayim, Lo Haya Makriv Par Lemachar. We wanted everyone to have a turn with the bulls. So whoever brought a bull today wouldn't bring a bull the next day, ela chayzrin chalila, till they would just keep going around and around. So the division of the groups, like we said before, but who got what would always change. We want every group to get as many bulls as they can. If you think about it, you do the math, 13 plus 12 plus 11 plus 10 plus 9 plus 8 plus 7 is 70 total. Yeah. By the way, the Talmud says it was 70 for the 70 nations. These sacrifices would kind of help the rest of the world. 70 divided by 24, so you have 24 plus 24 is 48. Mm-hmm. So everybody got at least 2 bulls. Then from 48 to 70, you have 22. So 2 of the groups didn't get to bring a 3rd bull. Bashmini on the 8th day, Shmini Atzeres, when there was none of this tons of animals, it was just back to the regular Musaf, 1 bull, 1 ram, 7 sheep, and 1 goat. Chayzrin lefayis kulan ke'echad kisharar regalim. They would go back to a raffle. Like any other holiday, Kameshban, as we explained, it was a raffle who would bring what. Yud Dalid b'yom tov harishin shel chag shechal liyas b'Shabbos. If you think about it, on the first day of Sukkot, this is the amount for the Musaf, but what if it fell out to be on Shabbos? Haya sham minchas nesachim shel Umusafin v'shel Temidin shishim ve'echad isarin. If you factor in all the flour that would accompany the Musaf sacrifice and the daily sacrifices, this is all the Musaf for Sukkot. Then there was 2 more sheep for Shabbat and 2 more sheep for the regular day. All the flour was shishim ve'echad isarin. It came out to 61 isarin v'lehayu ma'arvan, so they wouldn't mix it up. They would put 60 separately and 1 separately, as we learned, that you can't put more than 60 in one utensil. In general, you never mixed libations. We always bring the libations for bulls alone, rams alone, and sheep alone, whether it's communal or individual sacrifices. All the fats of the sacrifices, whether communal or individual, you also didn't mix them up. Every bull's insides had to be brought alone. Every animal's insides were brought separately. If they mixed up, you could bring them all as one, it's fine. If the flour accompanying the libations got mixed into each other after each one was mixed with oil by itself, they're kosher. In other words, you have to first mix the flour with the oil, then if they all fell into one bowl, it's okay. In general, whenever you mix the mincha and the oil and flour mix, you can even pour the wine into that mixture initially if you want. Because the main service of the mincha is mixing the flour and the oil. Same thing if you would have offered each individual flour offering, all the wine could be mixed together. Flour we don't mix, but the wine we can mix. When we mix wine belonging to libations, you can even mix yesterday's wine with today's wine, individual's wine with communal wine. And when you mix also, you can mix the wine belonging to bulls with the wine belonging to rams, or sheep with sheep. But sheep doesn't cross boundaries with bulls and rams. The wines over there do not get mixed up. And the Rambam repeats, you can never initially mix wine together only after the flour has been mixed with oil, or it's already been offered, as we explained. Blessed is Hashem, grants us assistance. Mazel tov for concluding the laws of Temidin Umusafin, daily and additional services in the temple.